I get a lot of emails asking, how can I become a script reader? For a long time, my standard answer has been, you don't want this job. Most of the time, the person asking is hoping they can go straight from their current job into reading scripts. At the risk of sounding pretentious, script reader isn't a job you get, it's a job you earn. Generally, you do so by getting a job that puts you in contact with people who need scripts read, and then offer to do coverage on the side for them. If you want to be a script reader, don't be above taking a lowly PA job, particularly an office PA job. If you're hoping to be a full-time script reader, completely supporting yourself on that position, I'm going to tell you it's very difficult. It used to be that some production companies I've worked for had a script reader on salary. They'd pay a weekly rate, and that reader would get a relatively consistent workload. Those guys had the security of knowing they'd be able to pay their bills each week. Far more common is an arrangement where the reader is paid per script. This rate varies. Most reputable companies should be paying at least $50 a script, but it's not entirely unheard of to get more like, say, $70 for basic coverage. If you read 10 scripts a week, which is hardly an impossible task, you could pocket between $500 and $700 a week. The problem is that over the last 5 years, companies have been cutting back. As you can see, a reader who covers 2 to 3 scripts a day is costing the company about the same amount as a full-time assistant. When pennies get pinched, that becomes an unnecessary expense. Thus, a lot of companies farm out work to freelance readers only when absolutely necessary and force the assistants to do a lot more of the reading themselves. The reason for this should be obvious. The assistants are already on salary and they aren't paid for these additional coverages. Make an assistant take 2 extra scripts a day and the company has just saved the cost of an entire person's salary. Most readers I know have to read for more than one company. When I got started, I was more than secure with just one company reading. I picked up a second gig just for security, and that was a perfect arrangement because when one office was light, I knew I had the safety net of another. But when work dwindled, I did my best to pick up other gigs, and at one point I was juggling work from 4 different companies. Some weeks they had enough to keep me busy, but there were times when I found that all of those employers were light on work. Reader jobs as they were when I got started no longer exist. If you really want to make it climbing the ladder, set your sights on an assistant job and go up through the development ranks as an assistant or story editor. Long term, that's a far wiser strategy. It's a terrible time to break into reading. The jobs aren't out there, the workload is shrinking, and you're competing with guys like me who have a lot more experience. Those jobs go to people who already have made contacts in the business, and guys like me are always looking for additional freelance assignments. If you don't have any contacts in the business yet, it's going to be really hard to break into it. This is a dying profession. I myself am on the way out of it. I'm actively looking for a salaried development position or any sort of writer's assistant job, particularly on a TV show. I've enjoyed many benefits of freelance life, but I was more than ready to move on by the time I was done. If you're smart, you'll avoid it altogether. If you have questions, leave them for me in comments. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you back here next week.